Anyway, you alluded to the energy situation. I might ask you about this, Patrick. What do you make of New South Wales now looking at extending the lifetime of the biggest coal-fired plant in the state? Is this the reality that the renewables transition is pretty clunky at the moment at best?
Well, I think if you were to look at how would you get Australia to transition to net zero by 2050 and how do we get more renewables into our grid, we obviously wouldn't start here. And where we start in this conversation is after 10 years of policy inaction from Jason and his friends when they were last in government. What we are seeking to do as the Commonwealth government is to make sure that we get the policy design right. New South Wales has challenges that they have to deal with in the short term, but for the long term, we want to get the transmission infrastructure, and we're investing in that across the country, including a $3 billion agreement with the Cook Labor government in Western Australia, so we can put more renewables in. But then,
but the medium term is big as well, and the raring is not short term. That's sort of medium term. Do you need to be more wary of not having a situation where that rewiring you talk about of the grid, which needs to happen at some point, doesn't kick in until it's too late? Do you see that as your first order of business, keeping the lights on?
Well, of course, we've taken action both to make sure that we have a stable and secure grid, but also that we have an affordable energy supply for households. We took action on that when it comes to affordability last year in the Parliament, which some of your viewers might remember. Indeed, even Peter Dutton, the Liberal Party, voted against that cheaper power bill policy that we put through without any help from them.
Was the price cap worried about the supply, which might still come home to roost?
And what we know is that as we need to add supply, because it's not just about making sure we've got supply for today, but it's also acknowledging that we are going to rely more and more on electricity over the years ahead.
Do you support what you've heard about New South Wales around extending coal? Is that sort of in keeping with what you think the best renewable plan is and transition for Australia?
Oh, look, I respect that state governments need to make those short-term decisions to make sure they can keep their grids stable. When I think about the requirements we have in Western Australia for keeping our grid stable.
Well, you're separate though, but
yeah, we are. We're on the South West integrated system, and that relies in part on coal-fired power generation. There's a long-term plan to shift that to primarily renewables with some gas peaking. That's the transition we're going through at the moment.
Jason, sorry, I'm running out of time a little bit. Jason, just on an element of this as well,
Tom,
the Nats now, so there's not enough focus. Well,
here.
You get longer than most. They already get in trouble as it is. People will be watching this and saying,
well, clearly we need more.
How long has this been going on? Yeah, we'll
5 years.
We'll see. I'll do my best on it. Jason,
give it the three of us an hour after 6 p.m.
Okay, all right. There's an
hour. That's true.
There's a bold call. If I may just interrupt the friendly banter with a question. Jason, what did you make of the Nats and now their push? This has come after their conference over the weekend. So they say the current process for approvals of major renewable energy projects are not exhaustive enough. Is that right? Is that going to help the overall energy supply?
Oh, look, Tom, if I could humbly suggest, I think that our approval processes for all energy projects are too exhaustive in Australia. I'm diametrically opposed to what the National Party is saying on this, to be blunt. I'm surprised to hear the National Party even making that argument.
So that you just disagree with that. Is this just their way of saying we can't blow up net zero, we'll do this instead?
Well, you'd have to ask them that. I hope not, is the truth. And to be fair to the National Party, they did have a motion to reverse out of net zero, and the overwhelming majority of National Party members actually said, no, we are committed to net zero. So I think you're being unfairly cynical there. But, I'd have to hear more.
They decided they had to come up with something else crazy instead.
Sorry.
What we saw was
Patrick, that's unfair after
rejecting the rejection on net zero.
All right, just if I can give you a final one on this area, Jason. So Eraring, isn't Matt Keane opposed to extending it, and the Liberal Party in general? So
yeah. Well, I think Matt Keane's point is. Sorry. No, Matt Keane's point is that the Labor Party in New South Wales, which is just doing a horrible job, claim that they have to do this because we're running out of power. And Matt Keane's point is, where nothing in front of this government or the previous government demonstrates that we're running out of power in New South Wales. So here you have it. New South Wales Labor's transition to a renewable future is via coal. Well, if it's not, I mean, Matt Keane's point is that it's not economical to keep doing this. I mean, Tom, I know you're going to cut me off here, but let us not forget that this government, the Greens and the Teals, voted to give $950 million to the most profitable coal companies in the world. Now, the reason they're doing that is because their transition, Chris Bowen's magical joyride of transition to a new renewable future, isn't working. And that's the issue that, if I may humbly suggest, the Canberra Press Gallery should start focusing on.
You've got a decent amount of time. I didn't even cut you off. It was the AEMO report they cited, the Labor Party. Patrick, I got Jason to have an opinion in the end.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
All right.
Tom, I have to point out that AEMO report and the CSIRO report, both the the Gen report and the ISP report, has now been absolutely demolished. They didn't include transmission costs, and they said that those transmission costs were sunken costs. And that's why no one is now taking those reports seriously, except for Simon Holmes à Court, of course.
Patrick, to round this off, do you actually have a view on what New South Wales Labor is doing here?
I accept that state governments will need to make decisions in their immediate interests as we make this long-term transition to renewables. Right. What I've got to say, though, on the National Party and their sort of, net zero, no net zero, is that we've now got David Littleproud as leader of the National Party going around saying that his net zero was different to net zero under Labor, that he supports one type of net zero but not another type of net zero. It's a very confusing argument. Zero emissions by 2050 is zero emissions by 2050.
There are a lot of ways to get there, which is all I'll say on that. Patrick, Jason, we're going well over time. I hope you're both happy. I'll probably have my pay docked, so I'll talk to you maybe in a fortnight, maybe not.